This is the Lucky Craft Real Ayu glide bait. It's 178F. Take a look at how I like to use it for flathead. Yes! Yes! Big stall. Oh, beautiful fish too. Oh, he's completely just sucked it right down. Yes! If you love chasing big flathead on the flats, you've got to give these big glide baits a go. These things are just fantastic, especially in really shallow water. These Real Ayu 178Fs, it's a floating glide bait and their balance is just brilliant for throwing along the shallows. This is probably my favourite colour. It looks a lot like a whiting or a mullet, and then that chartreuse tail on the back there. It just helps in dirty water. They've got these feather teaser tails down the bottom on some really sharp big trebles that have got a lot of gape there, so you can get these big flathead hooked. Often with some glide baits, their hooks are undersized and it's really hard to catch the fish, but these bigger gape hooks that they come with, these Lucky Craft glide baits come with, are enough to pin them. Especially this is a floating glide bait as well, so it sits up on the surface and just allows you to have the fish come from underneath and grab it, and that's where the hooks are. They're a lot of fun. Let me show you how I like to retrieve it. So big wind assisted casts. I'm using a 7-foot rod and just fairly light braid. I've got a 20-pound leader on though, because they can saw through it. These big flathead with big mouths that can suck this thing right down. They can get the whole thing down their throat. You want to have that little bit of insurance. And I'm just fishing it super slow. It's only about a foot and a half deep. There's some really big girls that get up in these shallows, especially on the mud where it's really soft mud. And they love these big mullet and whiting imitations. I'm fishing, this is the bottom of the tide, so I've put that chartreuse tail on just to stick out a little bit in the dirtier water. And working it along these flats. The retrieve you can go for, there's a lot of different variations you can use, but across these flats, giving it that time to sit up above the flat so that the flathead can eye it in is really important, not just swimming it straight across. A lot of flathead will make their decision after a while of scoping a lure out, and often they'll have to come back from the side. So lots of stalls like I'm doing now and just intermittent little jigs to get the fish called in. It's the way that you want to work it. It's so exciting, this style of fishing. You can see big flathead love these things. They've kind of made their mark in Australia now, these big glide baits and swim baits for cod. But there's a lot of momentum behind these. My mate Heath Roberts, he fished the Flathead Classic really well last year, did really well with one of these big glide baits from Lucky Craft. That really slow retrieve, it's about patience. I don't know how they do it in competitions, because when you're chasing fish you want to be fishing a little bit faster, so you've got to slow it right down and just have that confidence that that slower retrieve with big stalls. Sometimes I'll let it sit there for more than 5 seconds if I think I'm onto a spot where there's like a little corner where bait's pushed up or a pressure point. That's what you want to do. They're hard to fish in really tidal areas or where there's wind affected areas. So my rod tip's down here with this gentle breeze. My rod tip's right down so I can feel any little movement. And I've got a really good pair of Polaroids. So high transition lenses on these flats allows me to actually watch it. I can see the glide bait come all the way back. Yes! Yes! Big stall. Oh, beautiful fish too. Oh, he's completely just sucked it right down. Yes. You can see that I'm fishing right out off this bank. There's oyster leases over in the background there. Oh no, he's on the outside. It's pinned on the outside. Have a look at this. Yeah. But I'm sitting off because that's where the current's lying. There's a current running along the edge of the bank here, so just on the drop off. Have a look at that. On this glide bait, God, they're a lot of fun to fish with.